Hey everybody, it's Joe Buffington with REMAX Realty Centre. Thank you guys for hopping on here. This is a video about the new forms changes. I sat through the GCAAR webinar just now, and while this is fresh in my mind, I wanted to get you guys some practical thoughts and some ideas and some explanation from a practitioner's point of view about the forms. So, also, if you find this video helpful and other people you know, friends in the industry who would find this beneficial, please feel free to share this with them. All right, here we go. Here is the jurisdictional disclosure and addendum for Montgomery County. This is basically the REA is blended with the Montgomery County jurisdictional for the GCAR sales contract. One of the issues that has happened in our brokerage, and I've seen in other brokerages, is that an offer gets submitted, agent sees the REA, they submit it with the REA, and they're missing the Montgomery County jurisdictional addendum. So for the GCAR sales contract. So now this brings both of those together so that that form will not be missing from the file. That's a good thing. Timing of this could have been a little bit better, and I'll get into that. So here's the form, jurisdictional disclosure. This will be filled out at your listing appointment with the seller prior to a contract. So seller will fill this out. A couple things that they've done in here is they have reorganized the form and retooled some of the paragraphs within the form. I'm not sure exactly the complete number of paragraphs that have been retooled, but I'll kind of go through here and I'll point out the ones that I know just from sight and reading definitely have been changed. So, paragraph one, this form has been slightly realigned. Your rate on disclosure. One of the things just to keep in mind, the part about is the seller, if they're not exempt, did they attach a version or not? That question goes on the second page and kind of a little out of order. Um, Underground storage tanks, this one has definitely been uh, retooled. You've got your private well and septic, deferred water and sewer. A little bit of a change here is that the code for Maryland is that whether you're a private utility or a WSSC, front foot benefit, you still must disclose this box. Let's go through here. These are pretty much the same. Historic preservation still the same. Tax benefit programs. They've added some extra questions. Homestead and homeowners property tax credit. These are two new questions that they've added in here. They've also retooled this about the special taxing districts. They've listed out the special taxing districts here. There's a section on the Maryland non-resident questionnaire for that. Let's go through here. Let me go back. Condominium co-op homeowner association. Again, this paragraph has been retooled, reordered some of the questions in here. Let's go in here. And just note of practice, this question 22. Again, sometimes in some parts of the county, you will run into properties that have covenants and restrictions. That's just something to keep in mind. Not always is that disclosed, not always is it known by the seller either. But your buyer could be buying into a neighborhood that does not have an HOA with mandatory dues, but they do have covenants and restrictions that can be enforced against the property. So always be careful of that when you are going into a neighborhood that says no HOA and your client really wants to do something specific in that neighborhood. Airports, heliports, they have redone this map. And that's pretty much the big changes I could tell from those paragraphs. Seller signs this first when they do their disclosures, and then the buyer will come back at contract time and they will sign behind. Then there's a part two of this same form. This is, for all intents and purposes, this is the old Montgomery County jurisdictional addendum to the GCAAR sales contract. All right. One of the changes, though, or one of the things to keep in mind, if using, and here it is, if using Maryland Realtors Residential Contract of Sale, complete part one and two above, and you'll have to include the GCAAR form, Montgomery County Jurisdictional Addendum to the Maryland Realtors Residential Contract of Sale. So what you'll see in the Zip Forms GCAAR library, the GCAAR Montgomery County Jurisdictional Addendum to the GCAAR sales contract, that form is no longer exists. However, you will see this Montgomery County Jurisdictional Addendum to the Maryland Realtors contract that will still be in there. This will trip up some agents. Some of them will, because they'll see an old REA, they'll submit the jurisdictional for the MR contract with the GCAAR. Long story short, I would probably tell you best practice if you have an REA done already, unless you can find an old Montgomery County jurisdictional to the sales contract and attach that to your disclosure package, you're going to have to probably redo your REA to make sure that agents will have both forms. Because right now in the library, there is no Montgomery County jurisdictional for the sales contract, GCAR sales contract. If an agent submits a MR contract, they're going to need this new form, plus they will need the Montgomery County jurisdictional to the Maryland Association of Realtors contract. It's a mouthful. Okay, so that's that form. The next form, they have retooled the inspection contingency notice and addendum form. So this form now can be used for 6 different types of contingencies: home, lead, septic, WDI, radon, and well. So if you have, for instance, in the addendum clauses, home inspection, you have checked the home inspection box plus option A and option B. The B is the right for the buyer to void without submitting an offer of negotiation. Then that's this option, option one, right to void. That's when they void right off the bat. Option two is when, let's say, they decide they want to negotiate. So now, if they decide they want to negotiate, negotiations are broken up into 2 sections now: a corrective action section, which is this, and number 2, a credit section. So, for instance, if your buyer does the home inspection, they've got a list of 10 items, plus they want to ask the seller for a $5,000 credit. In theory, what you're going to do is write your 10 corrective items here, and then you will, in addition, have a credit of $5,000 in box 2. My concern is that someone's going to see this and they're going to see 10 items and they might assume, oh, 10 items plus a $5,000 credit, that, oh, the $5,000 credit is for these 10 items. So this is going to be a communication and kind of a relearning curve with folks, because this is a different way we're doing it now, that I would have a conversation with people that the 10 items is in addition to the 5,000, because the last thing you want to do is show up at the pre-settlement walkthrough and none of the 10 items are done because the seller assumed that the $5,000 credit was for the 10 items. Here's another nuance to this that they've added. So with the corrective items, they've got this section here where you can enumerate the things that are to be done by licensed contractors and receipts provided. However, there's also kind of a warning here that, it says here that all repairs, replacements will be done in a good and workmanlike manner. Note, some contingencies or laws require remediation or other corrective actions, to be done by contractors or firms with specific licenses and or certifications per the applicable contingency, regardless of whether the licensed contractor and receipts section below is completed. So there are some items that require a license and a potential receipt to come with those corrective items, regardless if someone filled in this paragraph. Best practice, though, You might win the argument here, but lose the war because the seller's just not going to provide it. Enumerate it here. Be clear. If you want an HVAC to have a licensed professional and receipts provided, just be clear about it. Enumerate those items in this section here. If you come to a section where, let's say, you've gone back and forth, there is now a box where either party can invoke the void. So this is where you've gone, say, buyer submits their 10 items plus $5,000. Seller says no credit, 5 items. At that point, buyer can say they want to void. So that's where they would give their void notice. One nuance to this, and it's rarely ever used, but it is something that is out there. So in that scenario, buyer submits 10 items plus 5,000. Seller counters back, no credit. And we're only going to do 5 items. If the buyer, that comes back to the buyer. Buyer says we're voiding. Buyer sends this as a void. Seller will have 3 days to accept the buyer's last offer. The buyer's last offer was 10 items plus a $5,000 credit. So if the buyer is looking to just get out of the contract, they may not have that option available. All right. And then I'll just go over this, a quick listing, uh, Form 910, the listing agreement. For broker compensation, the sub-agency has been taken out. So sub-agency is still legal in the state of Maryland, but it's been has not been used very much. And some sellers, it's confused some sellers that, so is this two separate commissions, a commission to, two different people, because you got a buyer agent commission, you got a sub agent commission. So to simplify this, they have removed that. However, sub agent commission is still a viable option in the state of Maryland. It's still there, it's still in the law. So hope this helps. Hope this explanation got you at least some high level chunks and some things to think about as you go forward with these forms. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, call, text, email, and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye bye.